I'm going to open mine up as well. And let's go to the top. And first of all, let's look at displaying the current date and time and how that would work. I'm going to use the function now, and I'm copying it to all three cells. Now remember, the data then in all three cells are exactly the same. But the first one here, I'm going to click on and format as time. So I look here and maybe I want something like that. The second one, I want to only show the date. So I'll right click, format it, and we'll pull only out date information. Maybe I'll do it for the weekday as well. And finally, we have the date and time. Remember, we can also use the timestamp. That's the Control-Shift: to input a static time. It's kind of fun to try something with the timestamp and the current time. I can put Control-Shift timestamp, and then over here we'll put equals now. And then take the difference between the two. So equals the latest time minus the earlier time, and it looks like there's 1 minute so far. Coming back later, you can see it is now 2:49 p.m. and the elapsed time is 8 minutes. This will continue as long as we have this spreadsheet open. It also will begin again when we open it up. Let's now scroll down and see how we handle time that exceeds 24 hours. Here, I'm going to sum all those times above. It shows that we've worked, or you have worked, for 17 hours and 45 minutes. But that doesn't feel right because the first 2 days add up to 17 hours and 30 minutes, let alone these next 3 days. What is happening? That is because we've got more hours than 24. And so part of those hours are now days, but that's not showing up as what we have in hours. So using this, you wouldn't get paid for them. But we can keep them as hours if we use this format shown over here. To do that, we right-click on this and go to Format Cells. This is a custom format. Right now it's formatted as H:MM, hours and minutes. Let's put it as hours and not let it turn into days. And then also give minutes. And say OK. Now it's 41 hours and 45 minutes. Boy, that sounds a lot better if we're paid that. Next, we have the problem of differences between times when one time is earlier than the other. What if you worked from 10 p.m. until 6 a.m.? That's a total of 8 hours. We all know that. But if I go equals the latest time, 6 a.m., minus the earlier time, 10 p.m., it's all just a bunch of pound signs. Excel, if we hover over it, says date and times that are negative or too large are shown as pounds. Well, it's not because this is too large. It's because we have a negative time. 6 a.m. is about a quarter of a day, so that's 0.25. 10 a.m. is getting closer to a full day, and so maybe 0.8 or something. We've got a negative time, and so Excel says, hey, I don't know anything about negative times, and I can't help you. Well, there's two things we can do. Notice over here we have a formula with an if statement where we can say if E49 is less than E48, then we'll take E49 and add 1 to it. Otherwise, we'll just take E49 the way it is. And once we've figured out if it needs to be added to the next day, then we'll subtract the earlier time. and it gives us 8. Now sometimes you may have to reformat this as a general rather than a time, AM or PM. Let's do the same thing with another formula. I like to use this, the mod. The mod formula takes one number and then divides another number into it. It returns the remainder. So equals mod of the 6 minus the 10. Now I have to say to divide it this time by 1. That stands for 1 day, so it knows how to do that. If it's a positive number, we'll just receive that number of the difference back. If it's negative, it will send us the remainder in a positive format to reflect what the real difference is. So notice I get the same thing, 8 hours. Converting to decimal hours, minutes, or seconds, or to a time. Notice here we have 525 in decimal. Okay, we'd like to make that in hours and minutes in Excel format. So we simply take this C67, the 5.25, and divide by 24. Now it is in Excel format, and we can use it as hours and minutes. 5 hours and 15 minutes versus 5.25 hours. Likewise, we can convert from minutes to hours simply by dividing by 60, or converting from seconds to hours, as is the case here. We divide by 60 and then divide by 60 again. Adding hours, seconds, or minutes to a time. Notice we want to add 5 hours, 14 minutes, and 25 seconds to this time. We can use the time function shown here, time of, and we have the hours, minutes, and seconds. So taking that, we have C81 plus the time function, 5, 14, 25, and it shows that it's 1:49:25 p.m. We could change this. We could make this maybe a 6. We could make this maybe a 5. And it's now, if we add that 5 hours, 14 minutes, and 25 seconds, it's 12:09 p.m. and 25 seconds. Another thing we like to do sometimes is round times to the nearest hour or minute. Often this is done for billing purposes. We have a time here in cell C87. We want to round it to the nearest hour. To do that, we've first multiplied it times 24. The hours and minutes are not in decimal format, and so we move them, create that by multiplying them by 24. Now it's in terms of day. We can round it to 0, and when we're done, we simply divide by 24 again to get the right time. Or to the nearest minute, we multiply it by 24 times 60, or 1,440, and when we're done, we divide it by 1,440. Likewise, we can do that for 15-minute intervals or 30-minute intervals. Many companies bill by the nearest 15 minutes. Converting between times and zones, we have Mountain Time here, and we know that Eastern Time is 2 hours later. So I've put 2 in cell D97. To get the Eastern Time, we take whatever is in C97 and add to it D97, but we divide it by 24. Here we've made it absolute so we can copy it down. That has now turned it into an Excel 2-hour difference that we can add. We copy it down, and here are the Eastern times. Let's next go to practice problem.